Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are keeping up with our Road to Eternal weekend by playing top decks in the format, and we're also doing a midweek meta deck today because we are playing Jibeta's Legacy Challenge winning Nadu Zenith combo. So we all know the Nadu combo now. So this is Nadu plus Nomads en-Kor. The Nomads targets a creature, we get to draw a card. We basically get to draw 2 cards for every creature we have in play. We do that on our turn and our opponent's turn. A very powerful effect to have, and we are very much leaning into this. On the channel before, I've played Living Wish Nadu and I played Cord Nadu, so now it's time to try this Zenith build and see how this feels. So our Zenith is getting us Dryad Arbors, a various smattering of mana dorks, one of which gives us uncounterable 3-drops here. And we have a Keen-Eyed Curator, which can go and find us some graveyard hate here. And we also have the Ice-Fang Coatl, which can block a creature with flying, like a Psychic Frog or a Murktide Regent. Sometimes have Death Touch, but it's going to be cantripping anyway, so some reasonable use there. This in with a bunch of Force of Wills. We've got 4 Force of Wills here and some Brainstorms. And then this sort of 3-drop slot is quite interesting. So we have the Uro and the Leovold, which are some nice bullets for our Green Sun Zenith, depending on where the matchup is going. And obviously we have the Nadu Winged Wisdom, which the whole deck is built around. And then we have this Teferi, which allows us to combo in peace so our opponent can't interact with us. But the turn 1 Halfling into any of these is going to be really, really strong. And what's really fascinating about this deck to me is this one-off copy of Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So Graveyard Hate is really good right now in the meta, so we're playing some Graveyard Hate. This also can just exile our Nomads, put a counter on our Nadu Winged Wisdom, and then it can be its own engine, and we can just ping off from there. So this kind of allows us to go after our Nomads gets killed or countered. We've got some Plows and some Prismatic Ending, so we've got a bit more interaction, unlike the Cord deck, which is very all-in. So maybe if we have time, we might play a Nadu Cord, but I don't just want to play nothing but Nadu decks. Maybe we'll end up doing 3 weeks of top decks, who knows. But we're trying the Zenith build today because it's the one that's just want a challenge, and I think a lot of people are moving towards lists that look like this because they want the interaction. And I think having a deck that interacts with your opponent in some way, like with the forces and some removal, is going to be key to beating, random decks at Eternal Weekend. So, you have your tier 1 and 2 decks. But, you could play against all sorts of weird and wonderful decks at a big tournament. So just having some powerful tools that you can interact with for some weird card you've never seen before is really key. Mana base, we've got some snow stuff in it. We've got a bunch of jewels and fetches. We've got ourselves a Hedge Maze and a Meticulous Archive that we can go and get for some surveil action. We have 1 black source, which is our Bayou, just in case we want to cast this Leovold. And that's pretty much it for the main deck. Sideboard-wise, we've got some spicy ones here. So Toxicrene, this is kind of like a sort of Blood Moon effect, except lands still tap for the colour they want. But it's going to remove all abilities from lands, and it's going to stop lands that tap for colourless mana being very useful. So this is very good against Eldrazi. So this is a Green Sun Zenith target we have. Collector Roof, not much to say about that one. It's kind of essential when you have a Green Sun Zenith package. A bit more Graveyard Hate and Ghost Vacuum, and the Fairy Macabre. Some protection, try and force things through in the Veil of Summer. We've got a Prismatic Ending for when we need a bit more removal. Fluststorm, Blue Blast, and Consign, pretty obvious counters. And this is an interesting one. Rampaging Yao Guai. X, green, Vigilance Trample, enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, and it's already a 2/2. When it enters, destroy any number of target artifacts and or enchantments with total mana value X or less. So for just 3 mana, we can blow up as many zeros as we want, which might be a useful tool to have access to. Not sure quite how good this is, but we'll try it out. And that's the list. So this is what we're playing for today. Please remember to like and subscribe to help the channel out. And if you want to see my videos early, it's just £1 a month on YouTube. Okay, let's start doing some Nadu Zenith action with Jibeta's Legacy Challenge winning deck. So our hand here is going to be relying on this Prismatic Ending on turn 1 as our interaction, or turn 2, and then trying to play a bunch of good 3-drops. In Legacy, as a format right now, is just having some good 3-drops good enough? Like, we're on the draw, we have a lot of lower drop cards that we can draw. We also have this, which can be a Surveil land. I think it's just about keepable because these are so good into so many things in the format, right? If our opponent's trying to aggro us out, we can do some Uro stuff. Teferi can lock down some of the more controlly decks and stop them interacting with us. This can stop our opponents from drawing cards off of things like Psychic Frog or targeting us. So we do have some really useful haymakers here. So I am going to keep this one. We're on the draw. We do have some interaction for the first couple of turns, and we have a play on the first turn if we're not doing a Prismatic Ending. Our opponent's beginning with a Ponder here. Off of a Tropical Island, this doesn't give us the most amount of information. We could be looking at a combo deck like Omnitel. Hard to tell. So the problem with playing out the Bayou here is that it's our only black source, which just shuts us off of Leovold, Emissary of Trest on turn 2 if they have a Wasteland, because it's our only black source in the deck. Let me just check that. So here's our list. It is just the Bayou for black. So knowing that, are we supposed to fetch something like a Savannah here. Play our Noble Hierarch. Do we have a Savannah? We do, okay. So we can just get access to most of our colours here. Because this is our only black source, we can just draw other green sources and things. I think I'm going to get the Savannah here, because then that unlocks the white spells from our hand. And if they waste down the Savannah, we might still have the Hierarch here. So they can't take us off of white as easily as they can just take us completely off of black. Okay, so they have to wasteland and kill our Noble Hierarch in order to stop us having the ability to cast what we need to cast. Our opponent could be on Infect, they could be on Omnitel, they could be some sort of Beanstalk control deck. They could be a Nadu list. Nadu list is probably the most likely because it's the best deck in Bant colours in my opinion. So we might be on a mirror match here or close to it. Alright, so took out one of our guys. Or one of our white sources, sorry. It was our only guy. Poor little creature. So I think we're playing out this snow-covered island and we're going to Zenith for 1 to try and get a Delighted Halfling. So this Delighted Halfling will allow us to deploy these haymakers uncounterably. Alright. We got a daze out of our opponent. So we're looking at some sort of Bant control style list. But it could be something similar to what we're doing, but the dazes as well. Maybe they're a Stoneforge, like Bant Stoneblade. There's a lot of Bant decks around at the moment. Oh, sorry, there's a lot of Stoneforge decks around, not a lot of Bant decks. Cephalid Illusionist. Okay, so we're on breakfast combo. So the next play here is to... We can pending this, or we can Soul Cauldron. If we pending, they beat us with a daze. So we can't beat Force of Will. Full stop. The pending can kill this, but next turn they could resend the entire combo with Nomads plus Cephalid. So if we pending, it goes into the daze, as well as leaving us vulnerable to them comboing with other cards in their hand. So I think that means we're playing the Soul Cauldron here and holding up what our opponent might think is a source to Plowshares. We don't beat Force of Will plus Nomads here. Alright. So we've got a way of stopping their combo because we can remove their Thassa's Oracle in response to them Judge returning it. Now they can then put it back in their deck if they've got the Memories Journey tech, which I showcased on the channel yesterday, I think. Our opponent says, let's see what's the best Nadu deck. That's kind of what we're trying to do here and find out, really. I think there are 3 different builds of Nadu that are all up there. Possibly 4 if you include the New Elves build that's been doing some good stuff lately. A Teferi Time Raveler. This can bounce my Agatha's Soul Cauldron. They'll probably just plus this and leave this and then bounce this next turn when they're ready to go off. But this allows us to try and pending the Illusionist. Yeah, so they made the decision I thought they would make. I will just trim something out of their graveyard. It's unlikely to matter here, but it's free for us to do so. Okay, so the 2 options available... Well, we've got more than 2 options, really. So we could play this Prismatic Ending on 2 to kill the Cephalid. We could play this Prismatic Ending on 3 to kill the Teferi, which leaves our Agatha's Soul Cauldron in play and stops their Teferi getting anything. But that plays into a daze. Last turn we played around a daze. Do I want to try and play around daze again this turn? Our opponent's only got 3 cards in hand. So if we leave them with the Teferi, this is worth another card to our opponent, as well as clearing our Soul Cauldron. And they're going to just clear the Soul Cauldron anyway, and that could leave them a free run to try and combo off if they have like another set of pieces. So I think the correct play, I suppose we could also play our own Teferi, bounce their Teferi, and then they could still have enough mana to just deploy the Teferi and the Nomads. So I don't think that works. So it has to be the Prismatic Ending. The Leovold doesn't stop their combo, so I think we have to Prismatic Ending. Which one we Prismatic Ending is an interesting choice here. It's a case of... I think the thing I would most like to get rid of is a Teferi, because this is also a loaded up card and stops some of our interaction down the track. However, this would be playing into a daze. So this is a really difficult decision this turn. We played around the daze last turn. Are we supposed to play around it this turn and just have this horrible bouncing thing? Are they more likely to have daze or the 2 cards that then resend it? I think they're probably more likely to have a daze. I think that means we are Prismatic Ending here. There's also the added upside of maybe we hit the Thassa's Oracle. Okay, we weren't beating Force of Will anyway. So if they can send it this turn, then we lose. What do they X out of this? A Nadu, sure. Do they have the other half of this? Bounce this, draw a card. Alright, they're brainstorming, so they might not have the other half just yet. So they are returning our Soul Cauldron. They don't have anything worth taking out here. I think we just take the Force. I doubt they're going to be able to interact with their graveyard in any meaningful way. In terms of getting these spells back. Obviously, they interact with their graveyard in a very meaningful way, which is their combo. They got the Nomads here? They do. Alright, let's have a little look at your list. Alright, we'll just F6 here and let our opponents show us as much as they want. Which is going to be our whole deck. Okay, so Nobody's Journey, like I mentioned, was going to be in. So the Agatha Soul Cauldron wasn't necessarily a hard lock. Alright, so the Narcomoebas come into play. Are they playing the 2 Narcomoeba build? This could be the one that we played. I think it went out on the channel yesterday. So back-to-back Nadu action. Let's see. Cephalillusionists. Nadus. The 1 cavern. The 2 caverns. Okay, so this does look like the exact same build that we played yesterday, I think. There's 1 Shuko. Is there a second Shuko? There is. Yeah, okay. We can see this game. My opponents won it. So, what works for us here? Things that have use. I like having access to Fairy Macabres and Ghost Vacuum here. I think these are some useful tools to stop their combo. How do we beat the Nadu is the next question. So Blue Blast obviously doesn't do anything here. Flusterstorm isn't really the way we're fighting this. We could try and use Flusterstorm to fight over something like Teferi, but I don't think that's where I want to be. The Pending can remove some of the things, so I like this as well. So there are 5 cards I'm interested in. Our one-ofs here in our Keen-Eyed Curator is definitely very good. Our Ice-Fang is probably the weakest of all these things. It can block a Nadu. I don't think that's worth necessarily keeping. I don't think our own Uro is going to do anything. This game could be kind of grindy, but we are trying to grind them out with things like the Emissary, Leovold Emissary of Trest, and our Teferi, and just kind of make some of their interaction non-viable. I don't think we want the Toxicrene just for the Urza Slugger. I think that's too slow. I don't think we're realistically winning a game with an Uro here, or an Ice-Fang. How many blue cards do we have here? We've just taken out 2 blue cards. Got all of these. That's 16. That's so low on blue cards. Not a giant fan of that. I don't have a sideboarding guide for this one because I just took it from the deck dump. So I wanted to see this list in action. What are the 3 cards we're cutting? Do we need to trim like a Mana Dork, perhaps? Maybe it's the birds here. The birds helps us cast Leovold, so maybe it's the Noble Hierarch's good because it allows us to attack our Nadu into their Nadu. Maybe we're not playing all of these Fairy Macabres. So that gives us some amount of graveyard hate. So we've got the Keen-Eyed Curator, the Agatha Soul Cauldron, and the Fairy Macabre, and the Ghost Vacuum. That's 4 bits, plus we have this other stuff. Do I want this Prismatic Ending, or would I prefer another Fairy Macabre? I think we do have to have the Force of Wills, because our opponent can just send it if we go shields down on that one. I like Prismatic Ending if they try and play out slower. Okay, I think we're going to go with this configuration. This hand is far too slow to matter. We have interaction. We have a nice card in the matchup. Shut off their cantrips. Make their removal more costly. We have the potential to combo on turn 3 here. One of these cards has got to go. What I like to put back. It's probably this Hedge Maze. We can fetch that when we want it. I'm quite happy to just start on Meticulous Archive here. We're not going to need to plow anything on turn 1. A Delighted Halfling is an excellent card to have. It forces our opponent to interact with the Halfling rather than our good spells, so it might let our good spell resolve anyway. Next turn we can play Plow. I think we have to hold up the Plow so we don't lose here. The question is, if we play this Halfling, we do lose to a Daze. So I think what we're supposed to do here, play this Misty Rainforest. If we Plow this guy now, they can't combo next turn. This combos with both of their creatures, but they have quite a lot of this half of the deck. So if we want to play the Halfling, we need to Plow this and see if this resolves. And then we maybe force them into a Daze on the Halfling, and that's also fine. Let's Plow this. Alright, we're just in. What mana source do we want here? Do we need another white? We already have white here. I could go get Bayou so that we can cast the Leovold even if we get... That's not true because we have the Tundra. That stops us from being able to cast the Leovold anyway. So maybe we're just supposed to get our mana right here and have like a Savannah or a Trop so we have the best access to our colours available to us. Of like the main colours of our deck. We do have green on a Keen-Eyed Curator. But we have to get green for this Halfling anyway. So the green is definitely locked in. The Bayou, it means that a lot of lands we can draw allow us to play Leovold. Even if our guy gets killed. I think that means we're getting the Bayou here. And then if we draw a Nadu next turn, we can just start popping off. A Ponder from our opponent. The Hedge Maze we didn't want. It came back around. So we have black mana here. Blue mana. This taps for green mana. There's Leovold in there. That's pretty good. Now, I think we're better off Hedge Mazing here. and digging our way to something a bit better. And playing out this guy. A Ghost Vacuum. That is the sort of card I would like to have access to in this matchup. I'm going to leave that on top. From here is if our opponent can make a Nadu soon, we can't do that much around the Nadu. Because for some reason, Nadu isn't a draw effect. Which might have helped keep it a little bit more imbalanced. Rather than what it is now. Okay, a Soul Cauldron and a Ghost Vacuum. Which of these would I like to resolve most? Probably the Soul Cauldron here. So let's go for a Ghostly Vacuum. Alright, that just straight up resolved. Our opponent's F6, so we just jam this. And we'll attack for 1 with our Halfling. Let's Tundra. I will get the Nomads in. We have 2 pieces of Graveyard Hate, so I don't think we're going to get windmilled completely to death here. We didn't see any Lotus Petals in our opponent's build, so they're not going to be able to just get us right now. Let's put some pressure on. It's pretty mediocre pressure at best. But this is quite a scary selection of creatures, because a Nadu will be uncounterable. It will draw us 6 cards before our opponent gets to do anything about it. Okay, our opponent Brainstorm locked themselves out of land there. Right, I didn't Ghost Vacuum or Agatha Soul Cauldron there. I just passed our opponent's turn. What are we doing here? I think an uncounterable Teferi seems like a good place to be. Alright, our opponent's just scooping into Teferi. Excellent. Okay, so I like the way we approach this with our sideboarding. We do have to have the Force of Will. I just don't like them that much here. We don't have that many blue cards to pitch, and our blue cards are really good. The problem is we can't just get rid of these and go, okay, let's have some Ferryman cards, because we need stuff that fights Nadu on the stack. So I think we're just going to go in like this. Do not take my sideboarding for the gospel with this deck. I couldn't find a sideboard guide before I started recording. If somebody does have a sideboard guide and they wants to post it in the chat, in the comments, sorry, then I'll be more than happy to pin that to help everyone else out. What does this hand do? We interact, we can brainstorm and fix our hand up. We have half of our combo. Let's do it. Ponder, sure. So we're probably not dying on turn 2. We can just deploy our Nomads. Alright, I like having a Force of Will. This is probably just Tundra. Our opponent's not going to mess with our mana. That's not what this game is about at all. They don't have the tools to do that. Let's deploy our Nomads here. We don't want to use the Brainstorm until we find another blue card, which kind of locks this Brainstorm in our hand. Unless we're going to be brainstorming away the Force of Will. That's probably what this decision might end up being. But opponent is a combo deck, so I am kind of wanting to have access to this Force of Will. Cracking a Flooded Strand over there. We're not fighting over this. A Shuko. We're not fighting over this. Meticulous Archive. So if we want to cast a Plow around days, we need to play out a land that isn't this Archive. Or this Dryad Arbor. Do I think I'm going to be brainstorming away this Force of Will this turn cycle? No. Which means I want to play this Tropical Island so I can pay for the day's cost without having to use our fetch hand that we may be using for our Brainstorm. So we might find ourselves in a situation where we need to Brainstorm. Like if they have a Cavern, then this... Yeah, so there's the Cavern. So now we can Brainstorm away this next turn. So they're going to get 1 activation. Oh no, they're going for the Cephal Illusionist here. What have they got? An Orange Chant style effect first. Not using the wizard mana. Okay, they are playing a Nadu. So target this once, and then we plow it with this on the stack. So they found a land off of it. It's going to name wizard as well, I would suspect. It can name things like Nomad. Doesn't happen very often. I've got one more draw coming. We are a long way off of doing anything here. And Nadu is going to do some real work. So I think we have to Brainstorm in our turn rather than our opponent, so we get to see a slightly larger selection of cards. They did choose Nomad. Okay. Force of Will never looked so bad. Let's send this right back. There is a Nomads. What land? So this can kind of get anything. We're not casting the Keen-Eyed Curator, but we might end up casting the Keen-Eyed Curator, I suppose. So maybe we're supposed to leave open white. We're supposed to leave open the Trop here, and then we can go and get another Tundra with this. Right, looking at our mana base, we do not have another Tundra. We can go and get Savannah. Gives us green-white. Okay. So I think we are brainstorming off of the Tropical Island now. So we can deploy multiple white spells this turn. So we can go get Savannah to play the Halfling. That's fine. We do not want this Dryad Arbor. Do I want a Force of Will that doesn't do anything? It might do something at some point, and it's probably better than this Meticulous Archive right now. This probably gets us Bayou. Deploy this. So we could either play the Nomads, or we could try and hold at this Force of Will around a days. Now, The Force of Will is unlikely to do much. Maybe we use it to counter a Dread Return. That can work if our opponent just goes all in on a combo like that. A Brainstorm. Am I just going to hit this Brainstorm now? 2 cards to get your Brainstorm out of your hand. Yeah, I don't think this Force of Will is getting better. Because if we let our opponent do their whole milling thing, that relies on them having exactly the Cephalologist and not the Nadu. And they can play their combo out uncounterably, so there's nothing we can use that for that matters, really. Pithing Needle is probably going to name... I don't know what their name's here. Teferi? If that's what they're scared of. They can name Nomads so that only they can use the combo with their Shuko if they don't think we have a Shuko. They named Fairy Macabre. Okay. Okay, they had it. This is a problem for us. So if we hold the Force of Will there, our opponent gets the combo, and then we try and counter the Dread Return. Our opponent might not go for it right now because they're not under pressure. They might try and draw into some action, but the fact they can't do this at instant speed means they can't just go, oh, we're just going to jam this. So they're getting a green source here, so that if they do jam it, they can Memory's Journey the cards back into their deck. Yeah, so there it is. Yep, so they are just jamming here. So there's a chance our opponent doesn't jam all the way, but I don't think we can win from this position right now. So I'm just going to scoop this one up. Right, so we lost the Nadi Mirror. Our opponent was on Breakfast. We were just on Zenith. I had a great time playing Breakfast, which went out on the channel yesterday, I think. It's definitely worth checking out. I think just having this thing that does actually win you the game is quite good. The problem with this deck is it's not as good a Nadu deck as we are, but it's a much better combo deck in the fact that its combo automatically wins the game. All right, let's go to round 2. Okay, Halfling, and then we can start doing some brainstorming. This seems fine. I do like having brainstorms. If we want to brainstorm on turn 2, this means this has to be a trop, but then we don't have any white mana. So I think we're just going to play out the Halfling off of a basic. We don't need to brainstorm immediately anyway. Our only white source at the moment, obviously this can make white mana, but only for set things. So our only reliable white source is one that is susceptible to Wasteland. So we need to keep that back for now. A Bloodstained Mire. Is our opponent going to be casting an Entomb on our end step and killing us? Possible. We'll find out. Okay. Are we brainstorming? Playing the Nomads. We're going to get to do one or the other. Don't be playing our fetch land here. I think I'm going to attack for 1. This can pay around dazes if we think our opponent's going to have dazes though. If we're cracking this and brainstorming, don't want to pay around a daze. We already have the mana here to pay around it. Alright, I think we're just going to attack for 1. We don't have 1 mana Graveyard Hate, if that's something we're worried about. So we're just going to hold this Brainstorm so we can hide our hand from a Thoughtseize or dig for an emergency spell if we need it. It's very unlikely that we can dig for Force of Will and blue card, given our blue count in the deck. And now Spellbomb. So our opponent is on, most likely, the blue-black tempo deck, which I think we went out on the channel Monday, maybe? So we're just playing the decks we've already played against. We already played with, sorry. Alright, so this is a Psychic Frog. So we will get a Tundra and we will shoot this. Right, it's just gone. Excellent. So now we can cast a delicious Brainstorm, try and sort our hand out. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So the fact that our opponent has shown us this now Spellbomb means this Soul Cauldron is a lot less impressive than it would otherwise be. However, what else are we doing here? That is another question. I think we're shipping the Archive, and we're probably shipping this Forest. Then I'll deploy this Misty Rainforest out. We're going to go and get ourselves... We kind of want to have some Snowlands going, but this doesn't help us do that unless we get the Forest. And we don't want green. Do we want green? No, I think we need to get a white source so we can't get wasted off of white, which means Savannah is the only real option here. So I think I'm going to play the Cauldron out. It's unlikely to do that much here, but we'll play the Cauldron out now with Delighted Halfling to pay around days, and then now it's resolved, we get to attack with our Delighted Halfling. I don't believe our opponent's going to be running now spell bombs in a Reanimator style list. Now we can still make the Psychic Frog worse by taking cards out of their graveyard. That's still reasonable. And it was certainly better than the other cards that we had access to. Did not need 2 more lands in our life. Dryad Arbor, you say. 3 mana. So we could be seeing something like a Brazen Borrower, which can't block our Delighted Halfling. We could be seeing a Orcish Bowmasters. That could be pretty good here. I think I'm just going to play this Snow-Covered Island, and we're going to pass holding up a Force of Will, because this taps for colourless. We have blue here. So we can actually hardcast this Force. We need to pick our targets here. Orcish Bowmasters. That is worth Force of Willing, I believe. This does get blown out by days. There it is. There it is. But I don't think we can just let that Bowmasters work. And we're not going to be getting our Force of Will having any value, to be honest, in this situation. Because we need to find a blue card, or we need to hardcast it. And hopefully, hardcasting it isn't a thing we're actually going to be doing. That was kind of our one window. We ended up trading 1-1 with the days. Not ideal. They didn't pick up their Surveil land, which is kind of interesting to me. A Psychic Frog. Yep, that's a good one. So we will exile their days. Unlikely to be particularly relevant. But it's a play we have. A Windswept Heath. This can get us a Meticulous Archive or Hedge Maze. So I think it's worth playing this over the Dryad Arbor here. I will be deploying a Nomads here in case we need to get creative with our blocking situation. So we have a choice about what we're doing with this Soul Cauldron. We could crack it now, so our opponent would have to discard 2 cards to jump the frog. Considering we've identified that our opponent is not playing a graveyard-based deck, I think this makes sense to do it now. It's harder for our opponent to get the frog flying this turn. A Fatal Push on our Delighted Halfling. So that means we miss out on some potential power with the Soul Cauldron this turn. Okay. I think we are just taking this, unfortunately. All of our game pieces are more important in play. Well, the only game piece we have is more important in play than our opponent drawing a card. Because if we can just play a Nadu next turn, we can also play a Nadu uncounterably. Because we can get rid of this, give this creature the activate ability. So they're immediately flipping their Tamiyo, so we're probably not winning through just regular damage. Our build doesn't have like a full-on combo for the Nadu. It just generates us enough value to win the game. It's not like we're trying to Spring Hunt Antuco, make infinite guys or whatever, and keep looping our deck with endurances. Alright, opponent, you've got some guys. We're at that stage of the proceedings. So I believe this wants to be a white source. I think that makes sense here. Another blue in case we draw cantrips and want to cantrip our way through the deck. That makes sense too. We do not require another land. A Delighted Halfling. I tell you, I'm not particularly delighted to be seeing this one. I'll play out another land. Alright. How do I feel about this situation? Not great. Pushing the Delighted Halfling. Okay. A Wasteland. Goodbye, Dryad Arbor. Just all the hits here. So we have a 2-2 to block with. So they're not attacking with the Psychic, with the Bowmasters here. They are attacking with the Bowmasters. Kind of worrying. So we can block here. I'll get rid of this Delighted Halfling and put the counter on my Nomads en-Kor. You just got more stuff? They just got more stuff. So we can just draw a Nadu and draw some cards off of it because we can put the Nomads en-Kor ability onto the Nadu so we can just target itself. Is our opponent going to minus this and get a removal spell back? No. They're just plussing the Tamiyo. They got another Spell Bomb off of the card draw off the Psychic Frog. Wow. This doesn't even feel close, does it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're not dead yet. This feels terrible though. Yikes. I do not feel like we're even playing the same format at this point. Opponent's just absolutely had our number. Ponder from our opponent. Right, so Tamiyo pops next turn. But we have answers to the Tamiyo. Hitting us with a Nile Spellbomb. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 if they discard a card here. So I have to take this, unfortunately. We're dead on so many axes here. 4, 5, 6, 7. So if they discard something to the Psychic Frog. Ninjutsu. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So even if we remove a thing, it doesn't count. Okay, so they didn't need to show us that Kaito. I guess they had to discard it, right? Or they had to... They've still got 2 cards in hand, though, right? I don't know. It doesn't matter. They actually demolished us. So they're not really doing graveyard stuff. Like, they have a little bit of, like, frog stuff, but it's not worth keeping these in to deal with that. So that's a nice thing that we can at least have access to trimming. Do we think that our opponent is going to have enough graveyard hate that we don't want an Uro? I don't think so. I would like a card that is good if we're just playing regular Magic the Gathering. So that's exactly where Prismatic Ending fits in. And then what we're looking at is probably something like a Veil of Summer here. Like they might have Thoughtseizes. They're going to have counter magic, so this feels fine. Will I like the Force of Will more than a Veil of Summer? We're trying to get our stuff to resolve and our stuff to not get killed. So I think the Veil of Summer is better than a Force here. I like the Ice-Fang. It blocks stuff that they have. I like the Teferi. That shuts off their counter magic. I like the Leovold. Shuts off their card draw. I like removal spells. Obviously, we're not touching our engine, really. So I think I like how we've gone here. Like, the Keen-Eyed Curator is just, like, a fine creature. Maybe it's good enough. Just be a big creature. but I think we're going to try it like I've got it here. Okay. I hope you like Nadu, opponent. We will need to find a blue source if our halfling dies. But we have a lot of blue sources in our deck. This just sends the most powerful thing we can do repeatedly. Are they going to bolt the bird or not? Let's find out. Not a bird, obviously, but it's an expression. It's a mana dog. We could just see a fatal push right out here. Not a fatal push. Okay. So we get a Nadu in play. That is pretty darn tasty to me. We're probably doing it off of this snow-covered forest, but we'll see what we draw. I want to sandbag our white source. This is just uncounterable Nadu. Let's go. Bloodstained Mire from our opponent. A Brainstorm. Sure. We can bounce our Nadu and replay our Nadu. Just to get into our deck a little bit more. We have to make sure we do it with the right timings, so that we can add some mana with the halfling. Alright. We're targeting our Nadu. We're drawing a card off of it. Oh, you're going to have a bad time here. We're going to be sending Nadus all the live long day. Here comes a Nadu. I think we're going to play this Karakas out so we have plow mana if we want it. We can save our Nadu if they're going to remove it and just use this as a draw an extra card. I like our spot here. Like this is... The Nadu engine is something that definitely goes over the top of the tempo deck. They have to stop us assembling it. But once we have a Nadu in play, this card on its own is really good. It checks a bunch of their creatures until they get much larger. It also just really smashes up their ability to remove our plays. A Nethergoyf. We do not need to plow this on our opponent's turn. We can plow around days here. I'll attack with our Nadu Winged Wisdom. I'm going to go and get a Tundra here. I would like to cast a Swords to Plowshares targeting one of these guys. We're going to untap our Nadu here. So we're just cycling it back round for a card. Quite an expensive card, but this is going to be a relatively grindy matchup, so just having more resources is a good way to go. Attacking with this, I don't believe we're blocking here. There's a possibility that they grow this. Could be awkward. They can have a Bowmasters to finish this off. Do we care if they Bowmasters this to finish it off? That's a different question. A Dismember on our Nadu. There is our Nomads that we can send with the Nadu next turn if we want to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have some options here. So we could play this land. We could play Teferi. Then play the Nadu. Then use the Teferi to bounce our Delighted Halfling. If we find a land and play this Nomads, we just win immediately. Or close enough to. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand, so we probably need to get something out of our opponent first. So we're going to go for this Teferi. So we tap blue. If we make this uncounterable, an Orcish Bowmasters, you say? Okay. We'll deploy our Nadu here. So we bounce targeting our own creature. They will get a Bowmasters ping, which will kill our Teferi, which will unlock their counter magic. That is less good. We could ping this off, and then we lose our Teferi. We could ping this off, and get to recast the Bowmasters next turn, which will then kill our Teferi and grow this Orc army token. So what is the best way of sending it here? I think it's bouncing our own Halfling here. Hedge Maze, not quite the one we wanted. I would very much like to have another Teferi. Okay, so this ping will hit our Teferi. Yeah, that's fine. They get a slightly bigger Orc army. I can live with that. Next turn, we can play Teferi into Nomads and some Halflings and just rinse through. So we just need to dodge them having another removal spell this turn. Which means we're taking the hit here. And then we're just going to rattle off our spells. The Teferi won't be uncounterable, but if they spend a counter on it, it's unlikely they'll be able to counter the next thing as well. Because they're going to not have access to double force. And we can play through a daze. Yep, just a 3-4. Can't block that in case they have a way of pumping it or they have a Bowmasters. Please don't be a removal spell. A Murktide Regent. That is irrelevant at this point, I think. So we're going to do our thing. We can Teferi bounce if we really want to, but we don't really need to do that. Let's have a blue mana here. No, we need to save green mana to play our guys a little bit, don't we? Blue mana. We need to save a white mana as well. White mana. Green here, we only get to play one guy. If we play with this, we get to play Nomads into Halfling and just draw our deck, basically. We can save our Nadu if we have to here. A daze. I will pay for this daze. Okay. I would like to play this Nomads. Target self. Yield to the triggers. That saves us time down the stretch. Target self again. Target the Nadu. Target the Nadu again. I will deploy a Halfling here. Target the Halfling. Target the Halfling here. We can play another Halfling. Actually, do you want to crack this land first? Get this Bayou out the deck. I kind of want to pending away this Orc army so we can bounce. If we get rid of this, Let's get rid of this Murktide. This only fetches us Dryad Arbor. That is another creature. Let's target the Dryad Arbor. What a ridiculous card this is. And the Arbor, this doesn't have any more targets to fetch. No, that's not true. I think do we have a planes that we can fetch? We'll wait that out in a minute. And we'll deploy this other thing here. Put some more cards. Some more cards. We can definitely get something with our Flooded Strand. We can't get anything with Windswept Heath though. Okay, it's just an island we can get. That's not actually the most helpful thing right now. We've activated all of our things. We go to attacks with the Nadu. In our opponent's turn, we can draw 10 cards. We have Force of Will up. We can block on the Nethergoyf and then with the Nomads and ping some damage around if we want to. I think just drawing a whole bunch of cards is going to be sufficient here. Got 28 cards left in our library. 12 minutes on the clock. We only got a Murktide. We can stop that on the way back down if we need to. Arcana Magic just works as well because of Teferi. Always feels good playing a game with Teferi. Psychic Frog. We have a lot of removal. I think we're going to start drawing some cards here. I think this has a target, right? No targets. Okay, so we know for sure now. So we've got removal for Frog, so we don't need to do that. We've got another removal spell there as well. Drawing some more cards here. Sure, you can have a Psychic Frog. Like, none of their creatures are ever going to get to stick around from this point on. We're just going to... We can take this damage and then we just send it at them over and over again with our team of mediocre men. Kind of tempted to block once. Just to pad our life total, just in case here. We have so many cards here. Right, it's pending this. Plus a Teferi. Plow this. Play another guy. Play another guy. Swing. Discard a halfling, it doesn't matter at this point. We just need to make sure we get this game 1 with enough time to win game 3. It's the main thing we're up against here. And attacking with our Orc army. Green Sun Zenith. At instant speed. We'll go and get ourselves this Leovold. Block here. And what have you got, opponent? 4 mana. A Murktide Regent. We're just going to Force of Will this and put the game to bed here, I think. This is lethal. Our opponent's just trying to take damage off our clock, which is fine. We're playing a deck that has lots of clicks. And the clock, managing the clock is an important part of playing Magic Online. Do I want to have a Keen-Eyed Curator just as a nice creature that will beat a lot of their creatures in combat? Do I like that more than a Force of Will? I don't think so. I like to get in the situation where we've got the combo going, then we draw into a bunch of Force of Wills. There is potentially an argument here to have the Agatha Soul Cauldron as a way of putting our abilities onto creatures. So if our Nomads gets Fatal Pushed, we can then put the abilities onto something else. But I'm not sure what I would cut for that. Quite a niche interaction that already means that we've tried to go and failed. Alright, let's see what our opening hand looks like and if we're going to be happy with it. We have a removal spell. We have 2 enter the battlefield tapped lands, which isn't great. I think double plow. Right, the way we lose this game is if our opponent plays a creature, turns it sideways enough times. Right? So if we stop the creature, especially when they have creatures that gain them card advantage, if we can just stop that, eventually our engine will go over the top of what they're doing. So I believe in the power of double plow. And worst case scenario, we can always brainstorm for some more cards. We're going to see a Nethergoyf here. Should going early, or we're going to see some pondering. A Tamiyo. Okay. We can't kill this right now. It's Meticulous Archive. An untapped white source would be nice. Alright, put that on top. Sure. This allows us to potentially Nomads en-Kor and plow if we want to. I don't think we do want to do that. I think we want to force their hand with our removal spells by timing them in a better fashion. Let's see if they just go upstairs. If they go for like a brainstorm just to flip this. Because that will become a real thing that we need to race. So I don't particularly want that to happen. Well, it's happened. So we've got 2 prismatic endings. Otherwise, we're going to have to try and beat this down. This Tamiyo card is pretty darn good at times. So our 1/1s won't beat this down. So we need to race towards Nadu. Or find a prismatic ending. Yeah. Our opponent's already put us in a spot where we die in a few turns. Like, we're not going to win if our opponent ultimates a Tamiyo, and we're just going to scoop it up. It's not worth your time or mine to let our opponent play their Psychic Frog with all their counter magic back up, and then they get it. Then they just discard all the cards and kill us. Okay, so what do we want to do? I think we are probably brainstorming this turn. It's a lot of land, isn't it? Okay, we'll get rid of probably... the Karakas has some utility here. In green source, maybe it's just this one here. So we need to get a green source to play our Delighted Halfling. Probably wants to be a Savannah. And we can get the blue off of the Misty there. Halfling on the go. Can always find a Noble Hierarch and be able to do a tiny bit of damage to this. This might be worth dazing for our opponent, but we need to play things to the board because our opponent just wins the game in a few turns. Once this draws half their library, we're not coming back from that. A Wasteland. That's pretty bad. That stops us from being able to send our full combo this turn. And a Fatal Push. Yeah, I think we're just cold here. Just tempo decks doing tempo things. A Brainstorm. So I guess we could try and send our combo next turn. So if we play the Nomads out this turn, then we crack this for a blue source, cast a Brainstorm to give us the most looks at whatever. And then we can just send the combo. We need to be able to put enough lands in and then Prismatic Ending the Tamiyo. Don't kill our creature though. That would be very mean. If we try to kill our creature, we probably have to Brainstorm Force of Will into our hand. Ponder. Okay, I can live with the Ponder for now. They haven't played lands. They could play land Bowmasters. That sucks. We're going to get Dryad Arbor to keep our Nomads alive, but then we don't have enough mana to play the Nadu. So we're kind of just getting ruined from all angles here. Okay, Nethergoyf, that's fine. We don't care about that. That's our opponent not holding up mana either. Let's crack this. So we get a Chandra here. So if we Brainstorm now, what does that mean? So we could be trying to Brainstorm to look for a Force of Will to push through our Nadu. We can't play around days. If we just draw a Force of Will, then we have Force of Will for Brain. I think we're supposed to have got a Meticulous Archive there instead. So what could we actually Brainstorm here that matters? A Prismatic Ending actually matters here. So I think we do Brainstorm. Because we can play that around days, whereas the Nadu goes straight into the days. If our opponent's got Force of Will, we lose the game. I don't believe our opponent's going to fight over this one. Right, so we actually did find Force of Will blue card here. Well, well, well. So I guess we put back just a couple of plows for now. What is better? Tamiyo Ultimate or Nadu combo? The question everyone wants to know. If they have Force of Will blue card and days, we're obviously very cooked. There is a days. We have to answer this with the one way we have of playing the game here. So the other option here we had was play the Teferi, bounce their guy. Yeah, but we lose to double days regardless. And then our opponent just gets to draw everything and we lose. Yep, that was unfortunate, but our opponent had us. Not much we can say about that one. Felt like our opponent's tools were very, very good against what we were doing. And we don't commit that much to the board. I think the lower redundancy that we have compared to the Chord build is coming up a little bit. Like, I've played the Chord build, I've not played this build before. And we don't have access to quite as many of both halves of our combo with this particular list. But we do have the interaction. And our interaction was pretty good. Maybe our opponent's hand, like the two games our opponent did beat us, they did have very good hands. So there is part of that. But obviously this deck sculpts its hand and does a lot of good stuff. Like our opponent cast 3 cantrips, so we're going to have good stuff. All right, let's go to round 3 and see if we can put a win on the board. All right, we're into round 3. Our opener has 1 land that is susceptible to Wasteland. We don't have a cantrip here. I don't think we can keep this one. It's a little bit too fragile for my liking. This one seems a lot better. I'll keep this one. We're probably going to get rid of the Keen-Eyed Curator. The green-green on this might be a little bit difficult, so I'm going to just say no to that one. Now, our mana is a little bit awkward here. I think I want a... Is it Savannah or a Trop? It's probably a Trop because a Trop digs us out of more stuff. Let's get our Halfling down. If we can find an untapped source, we can deploy the Nadu. Our opponent is going to clean up. They're cleaning up with a Balustrade Spy. That's a little bit scary for us, isn't it? Okay, so we've kind of missed this turn on what we wanted to do. A Brainstorm. I don't hate having a Brainstorm, but how useful is it going to be in this situation we're in right now? We don't get to draw it right away. We just need a land really next turn, don't we? Yeah, we just need a land next turn so we can play Nadu and the Nomads. A Boggart Bog. So our opponent's probably going to go for a Reanimate line here. They're playing around days using a Lotus Petal. So no to this one. Can we draw the land? Did not draw the land. That is an awkward one, isn't it? I think we still deploy the Nadu. This is the thing that costs us the most mana to do. I don't know if our opponent's going to have another Reanimate loaded up to go. A Thoughtseize. Alright, so I'm going to take our Nomads. That is a problem. Means we can't just draw our whole deck, pretty much. But our opponent isn't winning the game, so I will take that. Then we're going to leave up the Meticulous Archive here. So we can go and get our Hedge Maze off of this one. So have a little bit of selection and try and find Nomads or our Graveyard Hate, the Cauldron, because then we can put the Nomads ability onto one of our creatures and just draw a bunch of cards. So we need to dodge them playing one of their big 3-drop things, or their 3-drop or 4-drop guys. So it's 4 mana total they need. This is a 4-drop or a 3-drop where they pay 1. Alright, an Undercity Informer. Do you have the mana? They do not. They're passing the turn, which allows us at least to try and find a removal spell, if that's what we want to be doing here. So get the Hedge Maze going. A Green Sun Zenith. What does that find us? A Keen-Eyed Curator. So we would go 1, 2, 3 to get the Keen-Eyed Curator. Have 2 activations up. Probably good enough. Just checking I haven't missed anything here. No, I think that is better than an average draw for sure. So the fact that this is colorless to activate is really handy here. So they can pop this, but we can exile their stuff. Power of main deck Graveyard Hate. Coming in clutch here. So our opponent probably has the ability to Memory's Journey some stuff, but we can remove the Thassa's Oracle, and then they have to Memory's Journey, then we remove the Thassa's Oracle, and then they're kind of stuck. So they're going to need to have a little bit more action to beat this. And if we get to attack next turn, this thing could be huge. And we can just swing for lethal and force a chump block. Yep, our opponent's given up. Whew. Main deck Graveyard Hate. I'll take it. Speaking of Graveyard Hate, I would very much like a Ghost Vacuum here. Let's get these Fairy Macabres in. Buster Storm. Unlikely to be that useful. Not impossible. The Consigned Memory can stop the Balustrade Spy, but it can't stop the other one. Because that's an activated ability. The Balustrade Spy is a triggered. So these work. Collector Roof can shut down some of their mana. I don't think we need this. I think this is too expensive to blow up like Chromox and things. Kind of Summons can protect our hands, potentially. So this selection of things might be useful. What isn't going to be useful? We're certainly not going to be grinding our opponent out with an Uro or whatever. We just need to not lose the game. So I don't want to sideboard too many blue cards out. But if we're boarding blue cards in, that's also fine. The Leovold isn't really necessary. We're just going to play our guys and that should be enough. Teferi isn't great here. It is blue. Maybe end up being good enough, but we'll see. I prefer the endings to the plows for the most part. I don't think we want this many plows. We're down to these sorts of things. If we get rid of like that chunk, how many blue cards do we have if we have this as our selection? Right, 16 removal spells. Sorry, counter spells. The Collector Roof does mess with our own Soul Cauldron. So I don't actually think we want the Collector Roof, which means we get back another blue card. I like the... Do I like this Ice-Fang? Like, it's fine. For an Ice-Fang as a blue card. Is that better than an Uro? Probably. Is it better than a Teferi? Teferi does counter it, but so does this. Alright, I think we're going to run like this. Lots of Graveyard Hate. If our opponent's got a Duke like Goblin Charbelcher, that might be a thing we have to be concerned about. So what does this hand do? We have some Graveyard Hate. We can counterspell their thingy-majig, Balustrade Spy. And we can go and fetch our little raccoon friend. So I like some of the tools we have access to here. Alright, are they going to go turn 1? Quite likely. That's what their deck tends to do. We're getting a Dark Ritual here. Like, we don't get to interact with anything apart from their graveyard here. So they're going to mill themselves, and then we're going to see if we can win with this Fairy Macabre. So we have triple Narcomoebas coming in. So let's see the tools they have available to them here. Is there a bridge from below? There is a bridge from below. Currently don't have any mana, so they can't Jack-O-Lantern. So if we just take out the Thassa's Oracle and the... So we just take out the Thassa's Oracle so they can't win the game that way. How many Dread Returns do they have? It's just the one Thassa's Oracle in this list, isn't it? Yes. So we take out the Thassa's Oracle, and I think it's probably... I'm not sure if it matters from this point. Maybe it's the Memory's Journey, just to make sure they're totally cooked and don't get to go again. Where is the Memory's Journey in here? Or do they not have one in this list? I can't actually see one, which means it might be in their hand. Do we get rid of a Cabal Therapy or Bridge from Below? It doesn't really matter here, does it? There's any other way they can win the game. If we take out these, then I don't think our opponent can win. If they had mana floating, it would be a different beast. But they can't just make a bunch of guys here either. Should take out the bridge. So get 2 Poxwalkers back. We can probably beat that. How are they going to stop themselves from dying in their next draw step? That is what I'm missing here. I didn't miss a Memory's Journey. There is definitely isn't one in there. There's a blue spell. So casting it from hand would cost 2, so they can't do that. I don't know what one we're missing here. There's not some sort of random creature I've never seen before in here that shuffles things back in, is there? I can't see anything. Have they got more mana in their hand they can deploy? If they have more mana, then they might be okay. Dread Return targeting Boggart Trawler. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on here. 3 cards in hand. It has to be Memory's Journey and some sort of mana. That's the only thing that makes sense here. Okay, mana, and they're going to go for Memory's Journey here and shuffle some cards in. Okay, so we respond here because we could hit, if we Veil of Summer here. So what do we want? We want blue, green, probably Tropical Island. Yeah, if we Veil of Summer here, we draw a card. And if that card is Force of Will, we win the game. Or Fairy Macabre. So what's this? Reanimate, Fell a Profane, and Sink into Stupor. So 3, 6, 9, 10. So this is just enough to beat us down here. They're going to reanimate another creature. No, sorry, they can't do that. That's for later. They're going to Memory's Journey some more cards back in. Yep, I think our opponent might actually have us here. Windswept Heath. We get a creature, we block here, we still die to all their other stuff. Yeah, no, they found a way through. Alright. Now, we're on the play, which certainly helps us out here. Do I want to bring in some removal for those situations? I don't think so. That was a very specific selection of things our opponent had to have there for that to work. I think we'll just submit again. No, they needed the mana and the Memory's Journey in hand there. We have a Force of Will. We have a redraw. This gets a blue source. So this gets Tundra. We play this. Turn 2, we play... Okay, the Ice-Fang. There's an argument to hold up this Brainstorm in case they Cabal Therapy us taking this Force of Will. We can at least reshape our hand and maybe find a Fairy Macabre or something. So I think we actually just play our fetch land out and pass. And maybe we're doing Brainstorm thing. It does mean that if we draw exactly Nadu for turn 3, it doesn't end up as well for us. A Dark Ritual. Okay, let's let them commit another card. An Undercity Informer. Would I rather have a Brainstorm without a fetch land or an Ice-Fang? Probably the Brainstorm, isn't it? Say no to this. Alright, so I have a Force of Negation going over the top here. So this is finding a... Is it Tundra or is it Trop? We already have a green source in hand. It's probably the Tundra we want. Let's Brainstorm. Sign to Memory, Green Sun Zenith. These cards do not help us out here. Sign to Memory is the wrong one. Yikes. Okay, so this Pact of Negation resolves. Our opponent is going to have the mana to combo off this turn, so it doesn't really matter what we do. Yep, so they have the Spirit Guide, and we're just dead. Alright, we are 0-3. This deck is not really putting up the numbers we wanted to. I feel we got a little bit unfortunate in the blue-black tempo matchup, but this matchup, like, our opponent just leveraged the tools their deck is supposed to have, right? They kept on a lot of cards for game 3, and that's always going to be bad for us. We managed to take game 1, weirdly enough. Game 2 was a tricksy one. I guess if we work out exactly what our opponent's got in hand by looking at their entire deck, we can probably count all the Spirit Guides and work out that they have Memory's Journey plus... Yes, they have Memory's Journey plus mana in their hand. So what are we supposed to do there? Do we have to wait for them to put the Thassa's Oracle on the stack? The Dread Return on the stack? But they're not going to do that. They're going to Cabal Therapy us first. And they had 2 therapies. So they Cabal Therapy us first. And then we have to go off in response with our Fairy Macabre. But then they just go through it anyway. So we can't beat that line. And then if we had hit one of the Poxwalkers, then they're getting guys back when they sack their guys. So we end up with... Well, they had 4 guys in play. So they end up with 2, 4, 6, 8 power. So that's a 3-turn clock. So they still win. Yeah, I just don't think we had a line there. All right, let's go to round 4. This hand is kind of slow. Well, we have a 1-drop. We have a Surveil land. Maybe we can make something happen with that. Doesn't feel great, does it? But we have stable mana, which is something that I have not necessarily had a lot of in some of these games. Now, if we get a similar hand with 1 less land, it's just as good. So I think we should mulligan and leverage the power of what our deck can do. We're on the draw here. We have a Brainstorm. It is a 1-lander, though. But we can turn this into 2 lands. I think I'm going to keep this and get rid of the Euro. That's a thing for later. And Screwbeats Flood. I'd rather be needing to draw lands than be needing to draw specific business, right? This way we have quite a lot of useful tools in our arsenal already. We just need the land to leverage them. Obviously, land is a big chunk of our deck. So I'd much rather lean on this side than the last side where we can just flood out and never do anything. A Windswept Heath. So I think I want to Green Sun Zenith here. I'm trying to work out what land we do it off of. We can get a basic forest. It's not very helpful just to have 2 green land around. So I think we have to get a non-basic here. Probably the Trop, given the spells in our hand right now. Let's go and get our Dryad Arbor. Alright, a Daze on this has me a little bit worried that our opponent's about to wasteland us. But we can just do the same play next turn. There's the wasteland. Called it. But we don't have a Trop to find anymore. If we want to do this, if we ramp this out now and we draw a land, it's good. If we don't draw a land, we cut ourselves off of blue mana, right? Because we have to get... We don't have another trop, so we can either get a Savannah here. We get Savannah. We go Plains Island, obviously. We can get Savannah, one of our Hedge Maze or Meticulous Archive things as well, or a Tundra. Savannah is the only one that casts Green Sun Zenith. I think we're supposed to hold here and try and get a Surveil land and then maybe have a Brainstorm Green Sun Zenith turn. Our Brainstorm is likely to find us a land. Like, statistically, we're odds on. Along with a Surveil, that's 4 looks at a land. So we're probably getting a Tundra here. I don't think we can afford to play around Wasteland at all. So not a Tundra, a Meticulous Archive. Is it Meticulous Archive or is it the Hedge Maze here? No, it's the Hedge Maze, right? Because then we can cast this regardless. Yeah, Hedge Maze. Cool. A Delighted Halfling. I do like the Delighted Halfling. It is mana. It's not the land we wanted. So put this card on top. So our opponent is less likely to hit this Brainstorm with the days. Let's see. This getting hit with the days would be disastrous for us. Okay. I guess we're putting back a couple of Nadus. We don't... Our opponent's got Days, Wasteland, Ponder. So there could be a Reanimator style deck. Or they could be like Tempo. We don't really know. Let's put these 2 back. We'll play our land. And pass. We don't get to shuffle. This snow-covered land in our deck is not ideal. So if we look at the build quickly here, we have 4 basics in our deck, which is a lot. And Entomb. Okay, so our opponent is just going to beat us up with a giant monster here. It's an Atraxa. Let's see which cards our opponent reveals here, and can we beat them? Outlook, not great. If this is a Plow, then we're getting towards it a little bit more. So what do we have here? So we've got Thoughtseize, Reanimate, Brainstorm. Okay, that's not actually too bad. So Troll, Snowcover Swamp, and Thoughtseize. And the Brainstorm. There's 2 Nadus on top of our deck, so we don't really want the Nadus that are there. We're going to draw one of them, unfortunately. Okay, they discarded a Troll. I would like to cast this Green Sun Zenith here to shuffle the Nadu off. We can't afford to play around Days because we are very much under threat. We can't just wait a turn by playing a Halfling and drawing another dead card off the top of our deck. Okay, so the next card is the Nadu. I think we're just done there, aren't we? Alright, we were taken apart quite decisively there, but this time we get to broad in all of our Graveyard Hate and things should be a little bit friendlier towards us. So, I like the Ghost Vacuum and the Fairy Macabres here. I like this thing that answers Frog, potentially. I don't think we have space for Veil of Summers and because we need to bring in the Graveyard Hate. Is this a game where we're going to be trying to Uro grind our opponent? Possibly. Birds of Paradise can block Frog, helps us cast a black spell that we actually want in this matchup. Probably the Noble Hierarch if we have to cut any of these that goes. Teferi is like a weird one here because it's not amazing, but it does mean that we get to stick our combo and just kind of go to town. But we need to make 3 cuts to fill this in, so I guess we have to lose a Prismatic Ending because these other things are better. Maybe we're trimming an Uro and a Teferi, and just having Graveyard Hate plus Nadu combo should be enough. The Force of Wills are not great against our opponent's Graveyard Hate. So maybe against our opponent's Graveyard combo because they're going to be like discarding us and they're probably going to be boarding into a fairer thing. So maybe what we actually do is we rely on this selection of Graveyard Hate to beat their graveyard stuff, which is quite a lot. 6 pieces is quite a lot. And then we can board in back in the fairer stuff to sort of go over the top of our opponent that way. Okay, that's quite a clean cut actually if we board out the Force of Wills here. We brought out the Force of Wills and 1 Noble Hierarch. And that seems to be quite a clean... Would I rather have a Noble Hierarch over an Uro? Uro is very good against their fair game plan. Okay, I think we go in like this. If they're on just a fair game plan, we don't need Force of Wills, right? If they're on the unfair game plan, sometimes the Force of Wills don't work anyway. And this way, I think we just have more shots. Now, this is showing the problem of basic lands in our deck sometimes. So we have to mulligan this, I would say. Okay, this is a lot more stable. What do we get rid of here? The Plow does not help us cast... Sorry, the Plains does not help us cast as Leovold. So I think I'm going to get rid of this Plains. And then we have to decide what we're getting here. If we get a Savannah, that's probably for the best here. We can deploy this Birds, and then we have access to Plow. If we need to double Plow for some reason. I'm not sure what that reason would be, but we have them. So we can answer the first thing they reanimate. The Leovold should hopefully trigger when they're doing some stuff over there. Whether or not we actually play this next turn is hard to say, because if our opponent has a Daze, they just Daze this, and then we get nowhere. If they like Entomb Daze, what are we doing? So we can play out this Windswept Heath and have access to a Surveil land. Do I think it's important here to play the Emissary of Trest or not? So if we're playing around days here and we don't play the Emissary and they entomb and send it, we lose, right? If we play this, then if they entomb and send it and this is resolved, then at least we get a trigger. So we kind of lose a couple of cards, but then we actually get to just kill their thing and it's fine to a degree. Maybe they just get an Atraxa if we have this in play and they draw a bunch of cards and that's still really good. But at least we have a Leovold, so any of the cards they draw like removal or hand disruption is at least going to get us some cards on the backside. So that's kind of... If they don't have a daze, we want to play the Leovold this turn. That's not really a surprise. If our opponent does have the daze, and we hold up like a Surveil land with Plow this turn, into the Entomb, that's pretty bad. Because we're going to lose this Birds of Paradise, card from hand. I guess we Plow and then untap, and then try and play the Leovold into a daze again. But if they have an Atraxa, that's really bad too. This is kind of a tough call, whether or not we play around the daze here. I don't know if we can afford to send the Leovold here. Like if they have Entomb and Daze, then we're just going to lose this game. So I don't think we play around that. If they have the Daze but not the Entomb, then we want to keep this in hand. If they have Entomb and not the Daze, we want to play this. Okay, I think I'm going to play the Surveil land and try and play around the Daze a little bit here. There's also the consideration of what are they doing with this Bloodstained Mire? Are they cycling a Troll? Are they getting a Surveil land? Are they casting Entomb? There's so many plays in their deck that would allow them to just play a fetch land. Okay, so it's Surveil land and it's not Entomb. So we have picked the correct line due to the way things line up here. Now, if I had the information that my opponent was not entombing that turn, then this is the play I would have taken. A Psychic Frog. Sure. Our opponent is also less likely to be on Entomb post-board because Entomb becomes worse when your opponent knows what your deck is doing. So let's cast this while we can still pay for a double daze. Alright, and now we'll crack this and get our Meticulous Archive, I think. A Karakas. Do we want the Karakas? We can have the Karakas to save our Leovold, but it's another land that's not actually that good. I think we just put this into our graveyard for now. This isn't really what we're about, getting the Karakas going. Okay, I like this one as well. I would like to get the Leovold in first, though. So we need black mana, which has to come from the birds. We have blue mana, and we have green mana. So we don't really have a choice how it happen. We'll leave out the Meticulous Archive so we can play our Plow. This plays around days. This should shut down a fair chunk of our opponent's bits and pieces. Now, maybe we didn't have to kill the frog, but we have another removal spell, and we weren't 100% sure this was going to resolve. So I still like killing the frog there. This can shut down the frog's ability to draw extra cards, obviously, but it still is a big creature that can be the biggest thing on the board, so our Leovold doesn't work as a creature, because it's just going to get checked by a much bigger thing. And if they remove this or answer it in any way, then all of a sudden they're back on with the best creature in the format. So I like ploughing that. Sighting a Troll here. Our opponent is going to have some amount of graveyard stuff, right? They're still going to have probably some Reanimates or Animate Deads in there. Or the Fanatic, the Metamorphosis Fanatic. So this Ponder will not draw them a card. We'll just rearrange the top cards of their library. And now we can start doing Uro things. A Hedge Maze. Are we playing this now? Yes, because we might get a land or something off of the Uro, if that's the thing we want. A Prismatic Ending. This checks the next Psychic Frog. Is that good enough? 1, 2, 3, 4. If we just put this in the graveyard, we definitely have Uro for next turn. So I think we put that in the graveyard. So green, blue. I want to hold up a green. What am I doing? I should be holding up the Birds of Paradise. It's all of the colours. Do that sensibly. Green. And this one, let's play this Uro out. Get a little bonus draw action here. I will play this land, I think. Is that what I want to do? Yes, we have an Uro. We want to have as much mana as possible. We can't play this just yet, but we can attack for 3 with our Leovold. We don't have to worry about anything like Orcish Bowmasters here, which can do 3 damage to this. But they didn't have the mana for it. So we've got Plow around days up, and then we're going to play... So they do still have an Entomb package. Okay. So they might just have Entomb and Archon, but not the Atraxa. They are reanimating this guy. So this is going to target us. We're going to get to draw a card here. So we draw this card first, discarding this. I would like to hit this before they draw the extra card. Actually, they're not going to draw the extra card here, are they? We're still going to plow this. Alright, the Archon is gone. So you just get a pretty mediocre trigger there. Alright, not so bad. We get to send the Uro. Green, green, blue, blue. Actually, we can do this better. I'm just trying to work out if we want to keep this card in hand for Brainstorm, or if we want to play it now so that we can hold up better colours. I think we want to hold up better colours in case we draw a spell that we want to do. So green, green, blue, and we probably get rid of this Hedge Maze. That leaves us up with all of our colours here. It doesn't matter what we get rid of here because we don't care about our own graveyard. Outside of our ability to Soul Cauldron. So I guess we leave the birds in there. Right, let's do some more Uroing. This one we keep in hand. Our opponent can Orcish Bowmasters this. Am I willing to trade Leovold for an Orcish Bowmasters? I don't think so. Maybe they play it in response to the Euro, but I think it's so important for them to get this Leovold out of play because it's probably locking some amount of cards in their hand and obviously loads in their deck. So I think it's just safer to leave this guy back because we've got this doing its thing here. If they have Orcish Bowmasters, yes, we get to draw a card, but they basically get to get rid of this Leovold. All of a sudden, their Brainstorms, which can fix their hand, are online and all that sort of jazz. It's just not worth the hassle of losing the Leovold to me. I do like a Teferi, though. Let's go stick this in play, and then we know if we can attack with a Leovold then and get the extra damage through. See? They had it. Told you they had it. Would you like to target me? You would like to target me. This is a weird situation because we draw a card, and then our opponent gets to ping again. Like, we could just draw enough of our deck to just combo our opponent and win. Maybe. Is this really what I want to do? We're just drawing some extra cards because I do get to ping down our stuff a fair bit here. Sure. I think that's fine. Nomads. I don't hate that. We're going to get the Leovold going. Now, we are a combo deck, so us drawing lots of cards is pretty good here. They get a big guy, but we get more cards. All right, so this one is just pinging themselves now. Okay, so we lose the Leovold here. And a Brainstorm now that the Leovold is out of bounds. Understood. So we have Nadu combo because we get to play 2 lands this turn because of the Euro. Do I need to bounce anything here? I don't think so. We could bounce the York Army because they can ping and kill our Uro. If we bounce this, this goes and then we draw a card. And that's fine, right? I can't redeploy this right now. And we attack with our Uro. Sure, I'll put this into play. They're getting a Surveil land here. They don't get to cast spells because of our Teferi. They could be cycling. We'll play this one out. We'll crack this. Get a Tundra. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get Nadu. Get the Nomads going. I believe our opponent has lost this game. We're just going to have so many cards. Didn't find any additional lands there. Okay, that's fine. We drew many cards. What are we going to bin off here? We probably don't need something like a Brainstorm now. It was a blue card for Force of Will. Maybe we get rid of one of these Nomads. Not sure what your plan is going to be from this point, opponent, but it's got to be pretty good. Okay, let's just draw 6 cards. There's a land. We don't have any Force of Wills in our deck because we took them all out here. Right, so we have a removal spell for this. Right, so we don't have any white sources, if I remember rightly. We don't. Okay, so we have a Dryad Arbor. Sure, we'll let this just come in. Do you want to ping my Dryad Arbor here? They're pinging themselves. Oh, they're pinging the Teferi. Does that change anything here? I don't think so. I'm not sure how they're supposed to beat this amount of cards. Do we have any more targets for this fetch land? Let's have a little look. We have Snow-Covered Plains. Sure. So we want to do this when we're casting our spells here, whilst our opponent doesn't have the ability to interact with us. Do I care about playing this Bowmasters? Is another question. I don't think we do, because it doesn't impact Nadu. We'll just pass her. Just let them take our Teferi out. This way we can cleanly remove the 5/5 token. This token now, I think. We've got pendings that we can draw. We've got 8 more draws available. You would like to Thoughtseize us. Sure, that's honestly fine. That's 2 life that you're not going to have. You're never doing anything with your graveyard ever again. We have all the creatures you could possibly want. Maybe they take the Green Sun here, just because it represents anything we want. Yeah, they've taken the Green Sun. But we kind of already have all the things we want. We don't have an infinite combo here. We don't just get to put everything back in our deck and re-go again with like endurance and stuff. You'd like to reanimate our little friend, would you? Let's take out our little friend then, and we'll take out your troll. We can honestly just let them have the troll, to be honest. Okay, we don't have anything fun off of this Zenith, do we? No, it's just a Keen-Eyed Curator. Alright, our opponent's scooping up because we just have all the tools in the world. And they don't want to sit through it. And I don't blame them. So now we're going to the final match. I think we like what we've done here. Our opponent is less likely to have graveyard stuff in game 3 when they've seen the amount of Fairy Macabres we're running. Which means we could maybe trim on a Fairy Macabre for a Noble Hierarch. But then if they double bluff us, then we're going to feel bad. So let's just measure our graveyard hate yet again and see how I feel about this. So we have 6 pieces of graveyard hate, including the Green Sun Zenith, which can find it. However, if our opponent is duking off of the Reanimator, these Fairy Macabres are really bad. Like, Ghost Vacuum still has some utility. Keen-Eyed Curator is still a guy. Soul Cauldron can help our combo out. But the Fairy Macabres are bad. I think that our opponent should go off the Reanimator plan. But the fact they didn't for game 2 is kind of wild, though. I think we're just going to resubmit. I think we just beat their fair plan. We just need to make sure we don't lose to their unfair plan. This is a lot of lands. This is probably too many lands. I think we have to mulligan this. This is not a lot of lands, but I think it's better. So this is something we can get some purchase with if we're going for Dryad Arbor on turn 2. But we're probably not doing that. I guess we put back... Is it a Zenith or we put back the Curator? I think we put back the Curator. Zenith is just much more flexible, even if they cost us a touch more mana. Obviously, mana is the thing that we're a little bit behind on right now. Thoughtseize straight up? Sure. If they take the Ghost Vacuum, then they're still on the Reanimate line. If they take the Delighted Halfling... Alright, they're taking the Vacuum. So that means our opponent is probably on a line involving the graveyard still. A Brainstorm. I don't think we can afford to play around Wasteland here. I think we just get the Trop and deploy the Halfling. The guaranteed mana. Is that better than the Dryad Arbor? I think so. Dryad Arbor does tap for green in and of itself, though. Whereas the Delighted Halfling is only colourless unless we're casting a legend. Right, a Ponder. If they Wasteland us here, that could be irritating. If they Fatal Push our creature. Okay, no Wasteland. This is a reasonable turn to get a Brainstorm off because our opponent doesn't have access to the Orcish Bowmasters right now. So I quite like deploying our fetch land so we can shuffle afterwards. Just getting this Brainstorm turned into something else. Now we do have a route to the combo. We just need to make sure we have enough lands. 2 Nadus, 2 Nomads. I think that's probably fine. Would I rather keep a Nadu or... I think I'd rather keep the Zenith because they're more flexible. Another land in hand for next turn. If we crack this, we can Zenith for 1. Is anything for 1 that useful right now? It gives us more mana for next turn so we can just try and combo off. I think that's fine. So this needs to be a green source, which means it has to be a Savannah, I think. I don't really want the Bayou here. Let's go for the Savannah. Colourless and green. Let's get another Halfling. Is it a Halfling or is it a bird? It might be a birds here. The Halfling does... We don't get uncountable anyway because of the Green Sun Zenith here. I think it's just a birds. This helps us cast all of our spells. If our opponent end of turn in Tombs, then we might be in trouble. We're hoping for Surveil Land or something. Alright. I don't like this very much. Fatal Push my creature or something, please. Okay. This is awkward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. Which is exactly what we need. So if they put this Archon in, we have to lose so much. Yikes. Do we have a Green Sun target that kills an Archon of Cruelty? No, we do not. Is there a Green Sun Zenith target that kills an Archon of Cruelty? I don't know. Right, they're going for the Bowmasters here. Okay, this is the downside of getting the birds. And we're getting Wastelanded here. Not enjoying this very much. So we could go and get the little raccoon guy, but then next turn they just reanimate the Archon of Cruelty. If they have that in hand. They might not have it in hand. I think you would probably cast that over the Bowmasters, right? I think reanimating this and wastelanding us is better. Because you take out one of our mana dorks, you end up with a bigger creature in play that can then grind the next one away. So I don't think they have a reanimation spell. I think they were just using the Entomb to shuffle off the Ponder or whatever. No, that's not true because the fetch land is there. Why would they... interesting. So we could go and get the little guy, expecting the turn after to be good. Or we could just get the Nomads in play and just try and have a win, or basically a win set up for next turn. I think that is the play. And this will be our Nadu that we've got saved up. Right, we're cycling a Troll in the main phase. This is going to be for a Surveil Land. An Underground Sea. So that means they have 2 mana's worth of spell they want to deploy here. Animate Dead on that guy. Okay. So this puts us in a horrible position where we are losing our Halfling and the Green Sun Zenith and hoping to draw into a Nadu that resolves. Suffice to say, I don't believe we're winning this one. We are having a real rough time with this deck. Okay, so we played to our outs and we were rewarded. Now our opponent has to not have a daze, but the thing to remember about this deck that our opponent's playing is that they always have it. So let's get some blue and green mana in the pool there. Now, this might not be good enough to beat what our opponent's doing. They have a daze. We're just in the dirt here. Yikes. Okay, that is 4 rounds in the books. 1-2 for every single round. Like, we're putting up a good fight, but we can't quite get over the finish line in any of these matches. They've all been competitive. We haven't been, like, super stomped, like I was saying. You know, we've been getting wins. We just haven't been able to convert it into a match win yet. But not looking good for this deck so far. Let's go to the final round and see if we can actually put a win on the board and dodge that horrible reverse trophy. Alright, our hand for the final game, or final round even, looks pretty good. We've got a couple of lands, we got a little bit of acceleration, we got all the stuff we want here. I'm going to keep this one. I think I would like a Birds of Paradise. Oh, you're going to start for me there? No. Okay, so we want probably Tropical Island, I would say here. And we'll pass it back over. We're going to see an End of Turn Entomb. No. Meticulous Archive. Right. So our opponent is a Yorion deck as well, by the way. So much Reanimator now. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Yorion Reanimator deck. A Tiger. Okay, so our opponent is on a multicolored Up the Beanstalk deck. We do have an engine which can go over the top of Up the Beanstalk. Oh, wow. We're just terminusing our guy. Yep, Bolt in the Bird. Scalding Tarn from our opponent. It's back over to us. I think we go Brainstorm. This is our blue card for Force, though. So we get a white source with this. Our opponent's unlikely to mess with our mana base. So we probably just want the Tundra here. I'm not expecting days out of our opponent. Maybe try and bait them with this first. Just get our Nomads in now so that we have a clean shot to the combo next turn with forcible backup. The combo doesn't immediately win the game, but it does do a lot of work. Our opponent probably has a significant amount of removal in their deck. A Ponder, okay, that's not a thing we have to interact with here. A Wasteland, that is actively good for our opponent. We can still draw a land and make the Nadu though. We did not draw the land, so I guess we are casting a Brainstorm. We have a spare blue card. Now we have a second Nadu. Okay. I guess we have to play as Delighted Halfling because we don't have another Dryad Arbor to fetch. That's a little bit on the distressing side. I guess it doesn't really matter what order we put those back. Let's go for this Delighted Halfling. An uncounterable route towards the Nadu. You're going to put a Terminus on top of your deck. I thought we were going to be having a great time here, but our opponents had some nice interaction at the right times so far. That Wasteland felt pretty good. Our opponent spent a while on that Brainstorm, whatever that means. Let's get our almighty 1 point of damage in. We do need to actually win the game with cards that turn sideways. A Triumph of St. Catherine. Honestly, don't care about that. We'll plow that at some point. That does not beat Nadu. They play a Wasteland here. Okay, they didn't play a Wasteland. We need to hold our Force of Will for the removal spell or whatever. So blue. This can tap for green. And 1. Cast a Nadu. Draw many, many cards. You can't count on this because of the Delighted Halfling mana. They can try and remove our Nomads in response, though. Which is hopefully where this Force of Will does the work. And we didn't waste it on something like a 5/5 lifelink creature. We can put any number of stuff under the bus in front of this. We can bounce it. We can plow it. We're about to draw possibly 8 cards here. Maybe more. We already know what was on top of our library from the Brainstorm. But maybe we can find some lands now. We did find a land. That's good. Let's right away get the Savannah out. Do another look with our Nomads. Force of Will. Not shabby to have. We'll also do the Delighted Halfling. Get some more draws going this way. Our opponent is now cracking, wanting to do something. I wonder what it is they're trying to do. Because, alright, they're just getting a land out of the way so they can F6 a turn. I appreciate the sentiment there, not wanting to waste your time. Let's go get another land here. Do you want the Bayou? Now I'll do the Nadu, get another trigger. We've got another land. Put this one out. Might as well just get snow covered. Let's go on the Nadu again. Okay, we were trying to get mana so that we could deploy a Leovold here, and we didn't quite manage that. So are we going to Green Sun Zenith for... We could Green Sun Zenith for a Dryad Arbor. That gives us 2 more looks. No, we already have a Dryad Arbor in play. We don't have any 2-drops. Let's have a look at our deck list quickly. We just have the Ice-Fang. That's pretty good still. Let's go and get this Ice-Fang. This gets us another card. Doesn't have Death Touch just yet. And then it also gets us 2 more cards when we start looking at it with the Nomads. We didn't find an additional land at the end there, though that's fine. We've got a lot of fuel. We're not attacking into this. It's a lot easier when your opponent just scoops up to your things. But okay, I don't think we need this Soul Cauldron. The Uro wants to be in the graveyard anyway. It's its home. We don't need all of these Nadus. I guess we can keep one of them and probably pitch off this Halfling. So that way we maintain Force of Will with blue card twice. And we can Green Sun for Leovold. We can just put the Uro in play, which is bigger than the Triumph. We can also draw 12 cards right now. 10 cards even, if I can count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 cards. Good luck, opponent. Supreme Verdict here isn't the worst, though. A Leyline Binding. Let's say no to Leyline Binding. Let's see what they find here. They play another spell where just do the Nomads thing and draw a whole bunch of cards. Not having like an I win button is kind of awkward here. I'm just putting the Yori onto hand. That does not seem like the place where our opponent wants to be. A Solitude. Let's draw some cards here. Alright, so we get to remove their guys. We beat down with our relatively anemic selection of creatures here. Right, another land. Don't mind seeing one of those. Draw some more cards here. We're unlikely to deck ourselves, but it's not impossible. We can just keep recycling the Green Suns. We have many, many Force of Wills here. I wanted to make sure I had at least another Force of Will before we fight off this one. Alright, our opponent's scooping it up. So we'll plow this end step, then we crack in for a bunch. Something that is kind of scary. We don't have an I win button, so we can't just like go up to Crater Hoof and bash them or cast an Emrakul or whatever, like the Nadu Court decks do. Instead, we have to make some guys and then control the board, but they have an uncounterable spell that just wipes our board. Now, obviously, we can have enough cards to then rebuild immediately. That does scare me a little bit. So this is like a fair control style matchup. So what are we going to want in something like this? I think the Flusterstorm probably has some merit if we're going to be fighting over various bits and pieces. The top screen does not help us out here at all. The Rampaging Yaoguai, if that's how you pronounce it. That's supposed to be a bear. Okay, I can kind of see it. Anyway, I don't think this is going to be that useful. They will have things like Leyline Binding and stuff, but that costs loads of mana. Now, maybe for 5 mana with this, we can take out a Beanstalk, but that's not really what it's for. It's for use Zenith for this and blow up loads of 0 drops. That's what that's really for. So the other card that I might be interested in here is the Veil of Summer. Consign to Memory is a counterspell for Miracles. Also a counterspell for Leyline Binding. So we could have these in to fend off what they've got going on. I don't like the Agatha Soul Cauldron that much here. Don't think we need that. The Keen-Eyed Curator is just a threat, and I like having threats in a control matchup, so I will keep that in. Do I just want to board in a Collector just to be a threat? I don't think so. I don't think we're in that situation of bad just yet. I think the Flusterstorm makes more sense than the Veils. I'm still not big into the Fluster, but I think it's fine. Prismatic Ending, not the most useful here. Maybe you can take out a Beanstalk. Would I prefer to have a Veil? Probably not. They did show us some red mana. We could have Blue Blast just to hit the Fourth Eolingus. I don't think that's worth it. Do I want these Consigns over Flusterstorms? Maybe the Consign is better because of the 2 spells it hits are kind of relevant. So let's just have a couple of those in. Teferi is obviously big game. If we just have uncounterable Teferi, then our opponent cries. And that's what we want to do to our opponent in their 81 card deck. Well, well, well. If it isn't the exact things I want to have, I'll keep these. We probably go turn 1 Surveil Land, turn 2 Nomads, turn 3 Nadu, holding up the Force of Will. That gives our opponent less turns to deploy their mana in ways that interact with our Nomads. If we find a green mana source, if we find a green spell we want to play, then that obviously changes things. Right, we did not. So I think we're just going to play this and go and get a Meticulous Archive. There is a Tropical Island. Here comes the Beanstalk, no doubt. There it is. Am I fighting over this? No, we're going to fight over the specific things because we can out-card advantage Beanstalk. Because Nadu is not a very well-designed Magic the Gathering card. Go Gadget, Meticulous Archive. Show me the money. What are we looking for off of this? Swords to Plowshares. We're not really into that, are we? Like, we need them for the Triumphs if we end up in a sort of fairer plan, but I don't think it matters that much. Green Sun, Zenith. We could Green Sun. If we Green Sun to get an uncounterable guy, that's pretty solid here. Or we could use this later. No, I think we just want to get an uncounterable guy. The Delighted Halfling here. But I think we could save it for a Leovold, which is also reasonably good in this matchup. But the Delighted Halfling gives us 4 mana next turn, so we can deploy Nadu and the Nomads with Force of Will backup. And then we get to just draw 6 cards off the top. And maybe we can fend off that horrible reverse trophy. Our opponent's got a lot of mana open to interact with us. Are we just going to play this Teferi instead? ruin our opponent's day that way. Or do I think one... Oh, okay, now that we've drawn that, that does change what I want to do. I think we're going for an uncounterable Teferi. Helps if I tap the right lands, doesn't it? There we go. I think I like just taking a card off of this one. Okay, they're going for a Force of Will immediately. This does draw them a card, but our guy is uncounterable. So this seems a bit weird to me. Oh, okay, yeah, our opponent's seen it. Why would he even let me do that? No. Well, you can always target the thing. It just means your thing doesn't work. They might have been cycling to get a thing as another thing, or they get rid of the Brainstorm. I would like to just draw a card. I'm not going to bounce their Beanstalk. I'm just going to draw the card. We're going to go and get a Tropical Island and deploy another Delighted Halfling. There's a very big difference between a spell not being able to be targeted and a spell not being able to be countered. And our opponent found that out the hard way. I'm sure there is a thing that makes your spells untargetable that exists somewhere in Magic's history. Plateau. Could be looking at... Okay. Do I care about this? No. Is that true? If this hits the Teferi, that's kind of annoying. But if we Force of Will and we don't have a blue, then we don't have a Narset. So I think it's not Narset, a Nadu. So this is probably going to take out our Teferi, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get the card off of it. So now we're kind of hoping to draw a white source. No, sorry, a blue card. All right, we did draw a blue card. Which order do we play these creatures in? We probably play out the uncounterable one first. So blue, green, 1. That gets us this Nadu. I think our opponent might be scooping quite soon. We can hope. So then we can play this Nomads out. We should have played out another land. They could have a Spell Pierce here. They're going to plow our Nadu. So we'll get our first Nadu rip. And then we will try and counterspell this Swords to Plowshares. Alright, so I'm going to go and fetch and get ourselves the Dryad Arbor. And here goes the nonsense. So just drawing up all the cards in the world here. We don't have a way of making our creatures indestructible to dodge a Supreme Verdict, which is annoying. But we can just sculpt a perfect hand. Our opponent's F6 over there. So I've got all my draws here. What would I like to put into play? I'm a little bit worried about them having some interaction with us. So I could just play a medium-ish guy that is fine. Just to add some more power to the board. If we get swept, it's not the end of the world here. Like, we obviously just draw 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12 cards. And that probably goes very poorly for our opponent. Like, Supreme Verdict is the only thing we care about, really. And we don't have any way of dealing with it, which is why I'm not liking what I'm seeing with this build so far today. Red mana, this could be a... Okay, it's just an Uro. Do we care about Uro? No, we get to eat it with the Keen-Eyed Curator. And that is going to be some delicious food for our little raccoon friend. So we have a 2-turn clock with what we have. Let's crack this now. Probably just get a stack of plains. We haven't got that much white mana here. We already have enough to do Uro stuff of our own. If that's where we want to take this one. Actually, might as well get a Tundra while we're here. Or do we want to Surveil? No, we want to exile 3 things from the graveyard, actually, don't we? So let's get rid of their Uro. Let's get rid of a Source to Plowshares. Let's get rid of a land. So not quite ready to be large. But we're getting there. Alright, our opponent's just scooping it up. And that is the match and the league. So we did fend off the reverse trophy. But we only finished this league with a 1-4, which is not a very good record at all. Considering this is these are the best decks in the format that you should have an eye on. That is quite a bad record. So let's talk about the deck and what I like about it and what I don't like. So there's a lot more that I don't like about this deck than I do like, if I'm being perfectly honest. So our mana base. We've got a bunch of basics in our deck, right? So that we can leverage this Ice-Fang as a removal spell for Psychic Frog or whatever. The problem with doing that is we had a lot of hands where we have to fetch non-basics anyway. So we're rarely getting the basics for this. And it does make casting, you know, some of our pip-intensive stuff like Uro on the backside and Leovold very difficult if you have these sorts of cards, especially the planes there. So we're fetching non-basics anyway, right? So that just means that we're exposed to drawing a land that doesn't give us the right colours sometimes. So, you know, let's say we've gone to get a Savannah. We have more draws that don't actually open up the other colours for us, which is a problem. So I don't really like how the mana base is organised in this deck at all. Another thing I dislike is we don't have the ability to just say, okay, we're going to win the game now. We're playing a fair mid-range deck that has this busted combo that draws us a bunch of cards. Now, I'm not saying that drawing loads and loads of cards like this is a bad thing to do by any stretch of the imagination, but we're having to put some, you know, bad cards in our deck. So Nadu on its own is fine. Nomads en-Kor is not good enough on its own. This needs to have something to pair with it. In the Cephalid Breakfast builds, obviously it's comboing with 8 cards in your deck, so it has a lot of use in that one. And if you're in the Cord build, you're more dedicated to getting Nadu and Nomads out because you've got an additional 4 tutors in your deck, which is again something we don't have here. So if you want to draw that many cards, is Nadu the best way of doing it if we're not trying to loop and have an infinite win condition here? Like the Cord builds have Crater Hoof and Emrakul in them, and Cephalid Breakfast just mills until they find their Cephalid, and then the Cephalid gets to mill their deck, and then they get to put the Thassa's Oracle into play, or they can just draw their whole deck until they put Thassa's Oracle into play as well, which is the thing I have been pretty close to doing and even done before. So the payoff we're getting here is just drawing a bunch of cards, which is very strong, but there are easier ways of drawing lots and lots of cards like that. I think Tamiyo is a good example. You can just play Protect the Queen with a Tamiyo and draw half your deck, which is kind of functionally similar to going off with a Nadu, except you don't have to run Nomads en-Kor in your deck. I think this deck either needs a way where it just does instantly win the game when you have the Nadu thing going on, or you just maybe like a Zenith build like this is better to just go back to the old Zenith builds, but just chuck in some Tamiyo or something. I'm not sure. Like, we have a lot of stuff that goes with it, right? So we're kind of playing 2 decks almost here, because we've got a load of our deck dedicated to, you know, we're making creatures, we're powering stuff out so that we can do Nadu and have enough creatures in play that our Nadu does good stuff, right? So you want to be in a situation where your Nadu is probably drawing you 6 to 12 cards, right, when you play it. And, you know, that's fine. Like, it's normally going to draw, I guess, minimum is going to draw 4, right? Unless you're using the Soul Cauldron, I suppose. And you're just putting the counter on the Nadu itself. But generally, if you've got a Nomads and a Nadu, you're drawing 4 cards, you untap, you draw another 4 cards. That's 8 cards. That is a lot of free cards, and maybe that is just good enough to be running this sort of stuff. And the Delighted Halfling powering out things like Teferi and Leovold is quite nice anyway. So I do like that it's got that sort of angle. But then we're kind of playing like this other deck, where we don't want to have that many creatures, because our creatures aren't helping our blue count for Force of Will. So we're kind of playing this sort of like semi-control-y suite here, which obviously is the point of the deck, that we can switch between those gears. But I'm not sure if this is better than the sum of its parts. I think the Nadu Cord build that is really dedicated to doing the Nadu thing, and when it does the Nadu thing, you win the game. I think that is just a much better Nadu deck. And if you want to play control-y, you can, you know, play a deck a bit like what our opponent played in the last round. You can play some sort of Beanstalk control, you can play more control-y elements. And the mid-ranging on this feels a bit awkward, because we are trying to play a mid-range deck where we have a bunch of cards that just aren't very good on their own. Like, Delighted Halfling is fine. You know, when it's powering stuff out, it's okay, but it's not enough necessarily to worry a lot of decks. And, you know, Nadu on its own is fine. Nomads on its own is terrible. So, you know, we've got some stuff that is just, when it lines up right, it's going to look great for our deck. But we saw in many rounds, our opponent was able to stop it lining up for us. And that, combined with the mana-based issues we were having, I'm not sold on this deck at all. I think of all the Nadu variants I've played, this is the weakest one that I've played with. Now, obviously, very small sample size of games, and I've not played this build before, so there's a lot of caveats to that. So people who've played this deck more will probably have more reps and play things slightly differently. Also, you know, maybe if we play another 50 games, then my win rate will obviously probably be a lot better than 1-4. But I don't think this is what I would recommend for people to playing. I think if you want to play Nadu, you want to go cording or breakfasting. I quite like the Nadu Elves list as well, and hopefully we'll have time to play that on the channel before Eternal Weekend. But these are the sorts of things that you want to be looking out for. This deck is putting up some numbers, so it's definitely within the ballpark. I think it's because just the Nadu stuff is so powerful that you can afford to have a load of rubbish in your deck and just have this as like a clunky 2-card draw engine that is actually drawing you a lot of cards. So maybe that is fine and it's okay enough to do that. But I would like some way of just being able to turn the corner and say, okay, now we've assembled this, we get to win the game. Instead of now we've assembled this, we draw a bunch of cards, and it'll probably be good enough. But there are decks out there that have actual, factual, I win the game buttons like Thassa's Oracle. And what are we supposed to do about that? If we dig our way to Force of Will, we have to have enough Force of Wills to get through whatever they have. Whether that's Veil of Summer or Vexing Bauble, that sort of thing. So I'm not really a fan of what we're doing here. Obviously, it's been somewhat poisoned by the record, but you saw the games as much as I did, and the conclusion is hard to draw that this is the deck that I would want to take to Eternal Weekend from the games we've played today. Now, we haven't played enough games, perhaps? Sure. but it did feel like there was some tension, especially in the mana base, and with sort of like the deck that's trying to do too many things. I think I did play a previous build a little bit like this once upon a time, and it didn't feel great then either. Maybe this is just not my style of deck, but this is not where I would go if I was submitting Nadu into a tournament. Alright, that's us done for today. I hope you like this one. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming top tier decks that we're going to be playing on the channel to help people prepare for Eternal Weekend. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.